Let's talk about coloring our toucan. Today we're going to use these markers. You may have used markers like them before, you may not have. They are called Mr. Sketch markers, and I'm going to leave them in a plastic bin like this so they don't roll all over the table. At the end of art though, we'll put them back so we can check that the caps are closed so they last a long time for everyone. Now, with the Mr. Sketch markers, even though they happen to be scented, they're really for drawing and not for smelling. And the cool thing about Mr. Sketch markers is they can make thick lines or thin lines depending on how you hold it because of the shape of the nib. The front of this marker part is called the nib. And this Mr. Sketch marker is shaped in a chisel tip shape. So I can get smooth wide lines or careful detail fine lines. If I'm coloring a large area, I want to get smooth wide lines. Or if I'm outlining, I want to use the point of the marker. So when I color my toucan, I can be careful like that. Before I color, if there's still pencil lines that I want to erase, I could erase them because after I twist with marker, the pencil is sort of stuck to the paper. So if I want to clean up any pencil lines, I can erase first. I've already traced all my lines with Sharpie, and then I'm ready to color. So I'm going to start with a black marker. When I'm coloring, I like to leave the lid up there so it's out of the way. And then, the slower I go, the more careful I can be. I like using Mr. Sketch markers because they can fill in an area really well. Now around this highlight, because I don't want to color it in, I'm going to turn the marker so the small part is touching of the nib. And then also I'm going to use the small part to fill in these little tiny spots right here. And then I can go back to the bigger part, and now I'm using the small part to fill in the rest. Because I have a lot of practice, I kind of do this automatically, but you might have to think about it and slow down to be really careful when you're coloring. Now you can use whatever colors you want to use with your toucan. It could be realistic or not realistic. I think it's nice to use some variety though so we can see the different parts. Maybe I'm going to use both green and teal in the eye. And I can do that by doing one layer of green. So I'm going to go around first with the green. Uh-oh, I got to a part where I don't want to color over the top. So I'm going to use the pointy part of the marker for this part. Go super slow. And then I'm going to switch and fill in the rest of this space with the darker marker. If I'm ever using two markers in a close space, I always want to use the lighter one first and the darker one second. So that way, if the markers overlap, it doesn't change the color. If I were to have started with the lighter marker, or started with the darker marker and then finished with the lighter marker, it might have left the color on this. Whenever I'm done with a marker, I really want to make sure I'm closing it carefully so they don't dry out, so they last a long time for everyone. As I'm coloring, I'm really trying to fill my space neatly, and I'm doing that by going in smooth strokes of color. A lot of people assume that the easiest way to color is to color back and forth. I'm actually coloring only in one direction, and I'm lifting my marker up as I color. That way I can get a smooth layout. Because if I were to do like this, it's messy, it messes up the nib, and it leaves white spaces. But if I go in smooth colors and I lift the marker at the end, glide and lift, glide and lift, glide and lift, it'll help the marker nib last longer and look better. So that's what I'm doing. I also find it helps to turn my artwork sometime. Our artwork doesn't always have to stay the same way. As long as I'm in the same shape, I can turn it, and then it might make it easier for my hand as I'm coloring. There's no right or wrong way to color your toucan because it's your artwork. Remember, if we're using multiple colors in a section, like I want to use a few colors for this body section, I'm going to start with the lightest color and then go to the other darker colors. And I might be coloring very fast because I have a lot of practice. You might need to go a little slower. so you can do your best job. If you make a mistake, that's okay. Art is about trying our best, not about being perfect. I don't think anyone's artwork is perfect, even really famous artworks. I think our goal instead should be to learn, and we're learning by practicing. After you've colored the branch and the toucan, we're going to stop for today because we're going to use some different art materials another week when we work on the background. I'm very excited to see the colors you choose and to see your super careful coloring of your toucan today.